Hello again. So, you want to try taking pictures of airplanes and go beyond just using your phone. You'll soon realize that there are tons of camera options out there. What one do I pick? Well, the first thing you should ask yourself is what's your budget? How much are you really willing to spend on this very expensive hobby? But please don't be that person that spends thousands and thousands of dollars on a brand new camera body and lens combo, but has no idea how to use it. The words "all just grow into it" are famous last words. So what should you do? You should really buy used. Buy a used bundle, camera and lens bundle, off of Amazon, eBay, heck, I think even Craigslist has some good deals from time to time. You should really be expecting to spend around maybe $400 to $500 for your camera body and lens bundle. All right, great. So, but what body do I need? Really, any DSLR body, that's this, is going to work. Again, you don't need the latest and greatest equipment. And as far as the age-old Canon versus Nikon versus Sony debate, maybe unpopular opinion, but my personal opinion, doesn't really matter. As long as your camera can do really three main things. Number one, has manual controls, so this thing right here. Number two, it can shoot in RAW, and I'll get into the RAW versus JPEG thing later, but can shoot in RAW. And number three, it can shoot continuously. In other words, as long as I'm holding the shutter button down, that camera's going to take a picture. And really, I can't think of any modern DSLR that can't do those things. But in general, you're going to want to stay away from what are called super zoom or bridge cameras, sometimes they're called, aka these. Why? There's really four reasons why bridges are bad. Number one, there's no manual controls. Number two, maybe some of the newer models can, but number two, generally they can't shoot in RAW, and that's a problem. And number three, they're not capable of continuous shot either. So in other words, if you want to take a picture, every time you want to take a picture, you have to click that shutter button every single time. That's not going to work if you're shooting aviation. So how do I tell? Because these look really similar to DSLRs, and they are. So really, there's two ways to tell if something's a bridge camera or a DSLR. The first way is one, the lens is not removable on a bridge camera, so you cannot do this. The other way that you can tell is it brags about some ridiculous zoom level on the package. So it'll say something like, I don't know, capable of 100 times zoom. Dead giveaway right there. So for Canon, really anything in the Rebel line, that's what this is a Rebel T2i, is great for starting out. And I think Nikon, it's the D3500 series, but correct me if I'm wrong there. Again, I don't shoot Nikon, so I don't know. All right, great. So I've got my body, now I need a lens. And there are just as many, actually, I'm sure there's probably more lens options out there as camera bodies. But there is no such thing as the best lens. Think of it this way. You wouldn't use, say, a pickup truck to do the job of, say, a minivan, would you? There's a reason why photographers have lots of different lenses. They're good for different scenarios. All right, great. So I need different lenses. But what do I need, though? And again, just like with bodies, ask yourself, what's your budget? One of the most popular aviation lenses out there for Canon is the Canon 100-400. This lens. But as you'll see, it's very, very expensive. And it is that expensive for a reason. It is one of the best lenses out there that you can buy. But you don't really need it, especially if you're just starting out. Generally, if you're starting out, you're going to want to look at lenses with a focal length, that's how long the lens is when it's fully extended, of at least 250 to 300 millimeters. This one right here is 300 millimeters. This is really what I'm going to call starter zoom lens for Canon. This is the Canon 75-300. It's not the greatest lens, but it's great if you're just starting out. Again, remember, it's not about who has the most expensive and best equipment. All right, great. So I've got my camera and I've got my lens. The next thing that you're going to need is a memory card. Now, the big thing with memory cards is brand does matter. Please do not buy off-brand memory cards. At best, they just won't work, and at worst, they'll corrupt all your photos. You're going to want to buy from a name brand, say SanDisk or Lexar or Verbatim. So in other words, you're going to want to buy something that looks like this, or like that. Stay away from cards that look like this, or like this. I mean, who's ever heard of those brands before, right? The next thing that you're going to want to pay attention to on your memory card is the write speed. That's this little number right here. Because in general, you're going to be taking a picture of something that's moving very, very fast, you want something with a high write speed. In other words, how fast is the information being written to the card from my camera? So really look for something in the 120 to 160 megabyte per second range. So to sum up, there's 4 things that you'll need. 1, a DSLR body, Canon, Rebel, or equivalent. Remember, no bridge cameras. Number 2 is a lens, focal length of about 250 to 300 millimeters. Number 3 is your memory card, remember the write speed. And number 4, an HD monitor, not a TV. What about software? So generally most people will use Adobe Photoshop, so this, or Adobe Lightroom, so this. And if you were fortunate enough, maybe you get an Adobe Cloud subscription through your school or your work. I actually get one through my work. But if you don't, you can obviously pay for it out of your own pocket, and the pricing is here. But if you don't want to do that, there's a free version out there of Photoshop, basically. It's called GIMP. It's a different program, but it will also work in a pinch, and that is here. All right, so now I've got all my equipment. I've got my body, I've got my lens, I got my memory card, I got my computer all set up. Now what? The next bit of advice that I would give to you is learn your equipment. What can my equipment really do, and what can't it do? So, in other words, how far away or how close do I need to be when I've got my 300 millimeter lens? Can I get the bird in the backyard? Can I take a picture of my cat? Can I get a picture of an airplane flying at 30,000 feet? Probably not. How much light do I really need to get this picture at sunset? Somebody once told me, if you only ever shoot when it's a bright sunny day outside, what are you going to do when it's cloudy or when it's rainy or when it's dark? You need to know how to shoot in lots of different lighting and weather conditions and learn what your equipment can do and what it can't do in those conditions. Because time will come when you're in a situation where you think to yourself, well, gee, maybe if I crank open my aperture a little bit, and if I crank up my ISO, and I maybe kind of push it a little bit in Photoshop, I can make that shot work. Versus just taking pictures randomly and not knowing whether I can actually get the picture or not. All right, so in the next video, we're going to talk about more photography basics. We're going to get into aperture, shutter speed, ISO, the exposure triangle, all sorts of good stuff. So please stay tuned.